Hey there. So in this video, I wanted to talk about this concept which I've been using in some of the projects I've been working on in Blender, which actually transfers over from my interest in action figures and doing some customization there. And what it is it's this idea of kit bashing, or sort of recombining parts to make something new. So there's sort of a bunch of series of figures that I collect, which use a modular building system called the Glios system. So, for example, this is a figure from the line Knights of the Slice by Jesse DeStasio, or I think his imprint is Toy Pizza. And so, you know, at the base appearance is sort of a standard action figure. And then this is another one which uses same building system. This is the Mangalore by Toyfinity. Now, what's special about these is they have a shared system where there's a standard size peg and standard size sockets. So if I remove the arm from one figure, like so, and then take the arm from a matching figure and it has the same peg hole configuration, depending on the line, they may decide to have holes in the arms and pegs in the torso. But there are pieces that you can use to kind of swap that configuration. But what you can then do is now your smaller human dude has a monster arm. So, I guess the most probably widely understandable idea or version of this is Legos. You have interchangeable parts that allow you to do a variety of configurations. Now, these have kind of pre-built modularity in them, in that like you can easily pull them apart and stick them together in different configurations. Now, if you are willing to go a little further, how a lot of action figure customizers do stuff is they take a craft knife and actually, lop off an arm from one guy and then stick it into another one. I was always kind of wary of that because I felt that, breaking or destroying a pre-existing toy, even if it was to make something new. But with 3D printing, you're not destroying physical objects. You're just manipulating, computer models. So there's a lot less waste there. You can just cut out the parts that you want and say only print those. So this is a piece that I recently worked on, where the green sort of body is the base figure, which is, this like $100 Japanese figure with crazy articulation and engineering. You can do all sorts of poses. And then what I did is I went and found a miniature of the armor set from the video game Dark Souls, and I just cut off the pieces that I wanted of the armor set. So, like here's the helmet. I actually modified this and flipped up the visor and stuck a little skull inside to kind of make it a little bit more original. But, it's the same idea. It's the same idea of creating sort of modular or pieces that you can then add on to something to supplement, a pre-existing base. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to share my screen. And I'll go ahead and stop my camera. So what we got in here now is another 3D model. I did not model this. I just did some Googling around online for STL files for Dark Souls. And so this is another character who I'm a big fan of. This is Dragon Slayer Ornstein. So, here is a statue in a fixed pose. Now, what I want is I want to kind of cut apart his armor and stuff so that I can print out, just the head, just the shoulder pauldrons, just these sort of side skirt things. And then I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to tackle the torso. I might have to like cut it in half, but I'll figure that out later. The kind of technique that I'm going to apply here is I'm going to be using shapes combined with what are called Boolean modifiers. And so, I think it's unfortunate that they have to use a calculus term or like a math term to talk about this stuff. It's just adding, subtracting, and combining. That's all Booleans are. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do Shift A. I'm going to add in a UV sphere, which is kind of my preferred base cutting shape if I'm trying to cut out like organic pieces. I'll move it over here. We'll scale it up to roughly the size of the head. I'm holding the S key to quickly do that. And I'm not gonna go into all the keystrokes that I'm using here each time. I already did a video about that, and you can also sort of Google that. I just want to kind of focus on the concept that's being used here. Whoops, I just hid the sphere from myself. So what we do is we get it into relative position. So that's kind of encircling most of the head. Oops, keep doing that. It's because G and H keys are right next to each other. And so now what we need to do is we need to kind of change the shape of the sphere a little bit so that it includes these head spines that are coming out of the back. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a modifier to the sphere itself using the little wrench button here. So I'm going to add a modifier and I'm going to remesh this. And, by default, it does 0.1 meters, which is fine for me. And then I'm going to do smooth shading. Why I like to do this is it makes the sphere sort of a more complex mesh. So basically I can pull it around a little bit easier and it's more pliable. If we're thinking of physical properties, that's not what's going on digitally, but I like to think in terms of actual sculpting. So I have the sphere selected you can tell by the orange line around it. I'm going to switch over to sculpt mode. And then I like to use this elastic deform tool to kind of move large masses around. So what we're going to do is basically yank this around so that it covers all the pieces of the head that we want. Trick is here is I want the head, but I don't want to cut off any pieces of the shoulder pads if I can avoid it. So that's pretty good. So I will go back to object mode. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going, and this is where kind of either through experience or kind of understanding the math piece of things, what I'm going to do is to cut off the head and have it as a usable piece, I'm actually going to click on the entire model of sort of Ornstein here. And I'm actually going to duplicate him. So I'm going to do Shift D. So now I have a new copy, which is Ornstein V2 of 001, and it's selected. And I'm going to add the Boolean to that duplicate copy. And I'm going to choose to kind of remake what this is to be the intersection of Ornstein and the sphere. And so now you can see the orange silhouette is what I'm going to end up with. So I'll go ahead and do Control A to apply. You can also do the little drop down here, sort of as you're learning if you don't remember the keyboard shortcuts. But I'm going to do Control A. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select sort of the base Ornstein here, which is still the entire silhouette. And I'm going to add a Boolean to that. And rather than doing an intersect, I'm going to do the difference. So I want this entire thing minus this sphere. And then I'm going to go ahead and apply that. So this is where it's sort of the analogy or the matching up to what would actually happen in physical space. It doesn't translate one-to-one into digital space. You know, when I use this sphere to cut the head off, that actually like cuts the head off and destroys it. It doesn't give me it as a usable piece. So I basically had to do that as two separate operations. Now I'm sure there's probably some complex way that you can do it and use these shapes to separate it, but this is sort of how I'm doing it for now. So now if I hide the sphere, we'll see, you know, to the untrained eye looks the same, but if I click on the head, it is now an independently movable piece, which is great. Now I could, you know, just print this head itself and do that as a head swap with, you know, another figure. And actually I notice, it's like I got a little bit of extra chunk of the shoulder there. So I actually want to make sure to go in and remove that, because like if I try to print this and there's a little free floating bit, that can cause a printing error. So we'll go in, we have it selected. I'm gonna hit Tab to go into edit mode. We're gonna zoom in here. We're going to toggle X-ray so I can select all the parts of this little free floating piece. And then I'm just going to delete these vertices. And that way, that's not going to be a problem later. And so like that's the concept I wanted to show, is like you can use the Booleans to kind of cut apart stuff into reusable pieces. And now if I want, real quick, what I could do here is I'm just gonna delete everything but head. I could then file, export. This is an STL, and we'll call this Ornstein head. Export this STL. And then we'll quit out of this, not save the changes, go into my Blender folder, and let's pick another project that I had going. So let's open up the Elite Knight, which is that's the armor set I actually showed you the action figure of. So not this one. Let's do this one. All right, so this is the armor set sort of all cut apart already. But what I want to show you is, let's say I have, here's another statue. So this is one I cut up, but like if I wanted to swap this helmet with that Ornstein helmet I made, I could now do file, import the STL into this document. And well, something went wrong there. So let's we'll just import another head. We'll import a import this. Okay. So my point here is that, I could have lopped off the head in another Blender project. And then I can come in, oops, and I can stick it on a different person or a different, different model. So, this is a little wonky, but I think it gets the point across of, you can basically endlessly recombine parts in Blender. And, until you actually start printing stuff, there's no material waste involved. So I find that, tremendously freeing into, you can now kind of sculpt whatever you want. You can check parts against each other. You can check proportions. Also with sort of the, enormous number of freely available 3D models online, you don't have to sculpt everything yourself. It's good practice. The more you can do sculpting yourself, the kind of, larger possibilities you'll have. But you don't even technically have to be able to sculpt like a face or a hand or stuff, because there's so many out there available as like base parts. All you got to do is be able to kind of use booleans to cut them into recombinable pieces and then arrange them into kind of a cool configuration. So I think this is pretty cool. Hopefully you do as well. If you do, please leave a like on the video, leave a comment, and feel free to ask a question. I'm happy to use that to answer in the comments or guide what videos I'll be making next.